This is Stefan Stanford, and I am here with Suzanne Duclos and Dave Hodges from the Common Sense Show. Dave is freeing Americans one enslaved mind at a time. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
We're going to start off with an article that really caught our attention. You titled it, "When These People Go Into Hiding, It Is Time to Pay Attention." And at the beginning of it, you said your contacts told you it was time to stop warning people and start hiding from the wrong people, and that an inside source had told you they weren't going to be disseminating information because it would not have any impact. The train has its final destination and there's no stopping it. Now, that was just the beginning of the article. I'm sure our readers and viewers would be very interested in anything more you have to share about that.
Well, yeah, the information originated back in the days when I was in my last year of coaching college basketball. A gentleman showed up who I had made his acquaintance some years before, who worked for FEMA. He had, quote, early retired, and he brought his wife. They were waiting for him because I came off the practice floor at my office. And they had come to tell me that they were bugging out. And we'll go back to the beginning of our relationship. I used to be a Maricopa County first responder. They had come to our campus and asked for volunteers, and they said, "You'll get the drugs first." I thought, well, good idea. Well, later on, FEMA absorbed the program from the county, and I was part of the transition process, and I volunteered my time to do this. And I got to know this person pretty well during that time, and we struck up a friendship. And as the years went on, I actually had both of his daughters in my undergraduate psychology courses, and we corresponded here and there. But he was pretty tight-lipped. Now, his specialty with FEMA is bioterrorism, or anti-bioterrorism, I should say. And when they showed up, I was shocked. And I asked them when they were leaving, and they said this was October of 2012. They said they were leaving in December. And I'm seeing more evidence now of people who stopped broadcasting, people who aren't publishing. Lindsey Williams, I offered him to come on my show. We have a nice relationship, and he said he wasn't doing any more interviews. And we're seeing a lot of this. And I know that there are self-sustained communities that have built around the country, and most of them in very remote areas, the Ozarks, North Carolina, outside of Denver, in the mountains. I know of those three communities where people from the alphabet soup agencies who retire go into these self-sustained, prepared communities because they fear what's coming. And then I was talking, and you referenced the quote I gave from this general who's been giving me information for the last decade, and where he said the train has its final destination. There is no stopping it. America had its chance to mobilize and try to stop the coming tyranny, but we couldn't get off the couch, stop watching the damn NFL. Well, the new NFL term stands for not for long, and that's how much time this country has left. Americans have been wallowing in their own apathy and ignorance for decades. Soon they'll be wallowing in their own blood. And this was someone who I've gotten to know very well, who has fed me excellent information through the years. And he just said, it's not that he's going to stop talking to me, but he doesn't have any illusion any longer that we're going to be able to turn this around. At one time, he thought we were going to have a military coup. And it almost happened at Benghazi. And he broke this story for me. I was one of the first ones, if not the first, to break the story about General Ham and Admiral Guyette leading a rescue mission to save Ambassador Stevens, but they were arrested by their number two execs who were actually embedded CIA watchdogs. And he brought that story to me and chastised me for 2 weeks until I published it. That's the kind of source this guy is. And he just said there's no turning back what's coming. And what's coming, and these people that I've talked to involved in this movement, what's coming is so horrific, so terrible. We're going to look at pandemic outbreaks in this country. We're going to look at mass terrorist attacks. They're all, of course, going to be false flag attacks. It's designed to first bring on medical martial law, then there'll be formal martial law with the terrorist attacks. And the whole notion where this is headed ultimately is the Third World War. And our country would not willingly go into a war that could wreak such devastation on the planet. So they've got to lock us down, take away our freedoms, and make us subservient slaves. The bankers in Basel, the big guys that run the central banks, the Bank of International Settlements, want these wars of unification so they can bring about their new world order. And then the final step in this, and more people are talking about this outwardly, guys. This is no secret any longer. The final step after the world's subjugated is to usher in the age of transhumanism, where the elite meld themselves with machine in some kind of attempt to gain immortality, while the people they let live, about 10% of us, will be their genetically dumbed down, engineered, subservient slaves. So this is what we're in the beginning of seeing, and it's promising, I think, to bring humanity its darkest days.
Dave, you talk about the end game in your most recent story, false flag events, martial law, World War III, and transhumanism. Again, you mentioned that just now. Many now expect the brutal martial law will be ushered in through the use of a series of false flag cocktails, with each event designed to peel back the onion that was once the United States. You have Steve's Quayle's work Exogenesis in this, and you said that this book writes the ending of where this entire scenario is ultimately heading. You just mentioned that transhumanism. Could you fill us in a little bit more on transhumanism, what you understand of it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Steve's book is a highly recommended read. And what he covers is basically turning men into monsters. And I've had Steve on my show a couple of times to talk about this. And what we're looking at is pretty much what I said. We're going to have a bifurcated society where you're going to have the super elite. And actually, they've talked about uploading their consciousness into machines that can last forever. The whole idea is to gain immortality, but it'll be hell on earth for the rest of us who survive. And I don't think people like us will survive because we're the dissident class right now. But the people they let live, the subservient class, they'll be living in, we know the megacities. If people go to America2050.org, you can see that the Agenda 21 messages we've been putting out for years are right on the money, that there are 11 megacities planned. They're going to be densely populated with 6 million people, but that also tells you, too, how many of us they're going to wipe out. If you've got a country of 315 million people and you've got a planned community in this country, 11 communities of 66 million total, that tells you what the casualty rate is. How they're going to get us to there is through a combination of what you just mentioned, the false flag cocktails, the pandemic releases that are going on right now. And I think really at the heart of this is the Ebola virus. I can't say right now with any certainty, because I don't know for sure, that Ebola is going to be the pandemic that really thins out the herd, gets us into medical martial law, gets us into full martial law lockdown and complete compliance with moving towards the Third World War. But I can tell you that Ebola is coming along. It's the right disease at the right time. And there are some very suspicious things going on with Ebola. Number one, and I've got this documented on my website in an article where I have the patent for Ebola that's owned by the CDC. Now, what's interesting is you can't patent something that's an active nature. So that tells you the fact that they're granted a patent is that Ebola is a designer virus. And the fact that the Army infectious research people out of Fort Detrick were involved in this process even furthers my fears. Now, one of the other things that I published, we are looking at a possibility now of Monsanto, and then it was GSK was manufacturing or is manufacturing an Ebola virus that's supposed to be released in late 2014 or early 2015. But I found evidence on Crucell's website, which, by the way, they've scrubbed. Fortunately, I've got enough of their stuff I photocopied, that they've been working on a virus since 2000, or vaccine, I should say, since 2004, and their partners were the CDC, an influx of cash from Bill Gates. The FDA ran interference for them, and the NIH now owns the vaccine created by Crucell. Crucell actually tested this vaccine in the third quarter of 2006 on 2 groups of 16 humans totaling 32. Now, here's what's interesting. I have access to what a lot of people don't, university databases. And I was able to find some things about the testing, but I never found anything on efficacy or the test results. I found that the Ebola vaccine developed by Crucell was not contraindicated for human population. That means it won't kill you. But I didn't have anything about treatment efficacy, and I thought that's unusual. I used to teach research classes to graduate students, and we used to use medical models as one of our themes of instruction. And I've never seen that. I've never seen research results like this not be published. That tells me it's classified. And the fact that the Army is involved in this process, really furthers that belief. So you've got the CDC that owns Ebola and everything up to 70% of the variants of Ebola. Then you have the NIH that owns the patent on the Crucell vaccine, yet nothing in the mainstream media. And we're led to believe that this magic new vaccine's coming out from GSK. And I have to say, what's going on? And one more thing I want to add is, and I think this is very noteworthy, I found evidence as I started researching this that Bill Gates put $560 million into a group called the Global Fund. And as I researched the Global Fund, they say they plan to distribute 3 vaccines for 3 major viruses or diseases to everybody on the planet. And those are HIV, tuberculosis, and Ebola. I didn't even know we had a vaccine in preparation for HIV or TB. I had no clue, but it's right there in print. Bill Gates is a businessman. Businessmen don't put $500 million plus into a project unless they are expecting a return on investment. And if these vaccines become mandatory, which I now believe they will, then I think we've got the motives for these people. The CDC and the NIH are like the Federal Reserve. They're private corporations operating with government charters. They have positioned themselves to make money off of an Ebola outbreak, and that there's a further gain to be made. We could go into medical lockdown. And one more fact I think that people need to consider, if you look at Liberia, which is 6 million people, 2 cities are under quarantine. That's 2 million people. 1 out of 3 people are under quarantine. That's trapping the healthy with the infected with shoot-to-kill orders for people trying to escape. Project that into America. What will happen when Americans are told you're quarantined and that next door neighbor has Ebola? Well, you're going to get it too. Well, we have 150 million handgun owners in this country. I believe Americans are going to try to fight their way out. I think it's going to get really ugly.
I do too. I remember referencing that piece you were just talking about in an article that I did because I found that article fascinating. You also discuss, when you're talking about all of this with the Ebola and then the alphabet agencies, people bugging out, it all goes together. They knew this was coming, evidently for quite a while now. You talk about Denver. You talk about one of the places being Denver and how there's underground facilities. Are you saying?
Yeah, that's probably the worst kept secret.
Yeah. Are you saying that I believe I saw somewhere in there that basically Washington, D.C. is going to be obsolete and or something to that nature?
Yeah, that's a deductive reasoning comment. That's not based on any inside information I've been given. But when you look at groups like the NSA moving their operations to Utah, and you look at the CIA moving its major operations away from Langley to Denver International Airport area, that kind of tells you that Washington, D.C. might have a big red X and bullseye on itself. And that's just my speculation, but I'm not alone in that speculation. The continuity of government basically calls for, if you're aware that something is coming, a war is imminent, asteroid strike, whatever it is, that you are supposed to disseminate your resources so you don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I believe this is what we're seeing. This is the preparatory move for the destruction of some parts of this country. And I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure out that Washington, D.C. is going to be a target.
Survey the Girl economist gave us a great interview a few days ago in which he stated that this isn't the work of insane people like it might seem to others. This is a plan. This is a plan to take down our country and replace it with something else. And anybody who's paying attention can see this plan unfolding perfectly now. I know nobody likes to give dates or times, but what kind of time frame do you think we still have left to get our own families prepared, protected, and out of harm's way if there is even time left?
Stefan, I'm sorry, some of that broke up. What I basically heard you allude to though was psychopaths. Did I get that correctly?
Yes, psychopaths who are running our country, but who have actually fulfilled their plan of taking down this country. Uh, we see it unfolding every day. They're trying to destroy our country. How much time do you think that we have left to get our own families and friends out of harm's way?
I really don't know. I can tell you some things I've been told, but everyone always kind of gives me, the disclaimer that this is just my feeling. When this couple that I knew, the family of the FEMA man, I asked him that question in October of 2012, and he told me, he says, I don't think we have much more than 2 years left, which is why we're leaving now. He said, we just can't show up and expect everything to be ready. We have to go and prepare. And so that was lead time for preparation for what they thought was a couple of years out. Um, and things that he had told me would be, the use of foreign troops, and some of them would basically be kill squads, going after dissidents or whatever, and the release of bioweapons in this country. In fact, what he told me was quite frightening. He said that we have bioweapons that nobody knows that we have. He said, not the Mossad, not anybody. And you're absolutely right about the psychopath thing. And I'd like to interject this at this point because I think we make a mistake in the alternative media by just looking at the fact that the people that run our country and effectively are trying to run the world are psychopaths, they're gangsters. That's true, they are. But I think they're also a reflection of us. And one of the things that I'm trying to get out in my advocacy is that we accept leadership like this because they are a reflection of our values. As long as we have people that cheat on their spouses and swindle their business competitors and break laws knowingly, we're no better than they are. And if we were a fair and virtuous people and we actually went through the steps of spiritual development to become selfless, enlightened people that were on a mission to help others, and you realize that their life is more fulfilling, then having leadership like this would make no sense. But we have kind of earned what we've got, and what we've got are people who are completely psychopathic and they think nothing of killing billions of people.
Well, that's a hell of a note. It's true though. I mean, it makes perfect sense there. Okay. Well, Dave, is there anything that we haven't covered that you think should get out there right now? This is going to be probably published first thing tomorrow morning. We're just going to let you end it
Oh,
here.
good, because you'll coincide with my article. Wonderful. That's great, guys. Because let me tell you what's coming. Let me tell you what's coming down the pike. Since the announcement of the Dallas story, and let me back up. On September 13th, I received a communication from someone who purported to be a public health official from Portland, and they sent me a series of internal documents that allegedly was going back and forth between key health officials, hospital administrators, and so forth about the Ebola virus. And they were strongly indicative of the fact that there's already been Ebola patients since late August in Portland. Now, I couldn't confirm this. I couldn't get a secondary case that I could say, gee, here's another report like this. So I didn't run the story. And then what I'm getting across the country today, my emails filled with at least 24 tips, and a few of them I have been able to verify. And I'll give you one that I want to leave you with for tonight that's frightening. There's a man, and I'm sorry I do not have his name, but I'll have it published in the article tomorrow, as well as his blog website, that people can go and see that I'm telling the truth. He's a missionary who was delivering Christian messages in West Africa. He was in Liberia, and one of his neighbors wrote to me today and requested her name be withheld, but gave me his name. And he's public with his website, so I have no compunction about publishing it. Here's what happens. He was in the area with direct exposure to Ebola. He traveled to Brussels unabated. He travels from Brussels to Phoenix unabated. He lives in Payson, Arizona. He's put himself in a self-imposed quarantine for 21 days. And this started yesterday. I mean, this is brand new. And no one's touching him. No one's examining him. No one from the CDC is showing up to see if he's okay. Now, if this is a case like this, and this woman's panicked, she said, my kids have played with his kids. And she started asking me all these contamination kinds of questions. Can my kids get it this way or that way? And quite frankly, I don't know, except to say that Ebola has been proven to be airborne in over 50 research studies. In some of those studies, I have quoted on my articles on my website. But to finish the thought, if this is a case in Payson, which is a small community about an hour and a half northeast of metropolitan Phoenix, how many Paysons are there where we're just turning a blind eye to travelers that emanate from West Africa and are coming into our airports and then our communities from an infected Ebola region? It's not just going to be Dallas, it's going to be everywhere.
Yes, sir. We agree with you. We've been paying an awful lot of attention to this, and it's scary. We're not giving it enough play here.
I would say that's it. If you will drop us maybe a link when your article is published, we'll make sure that we put it in ours, a link to it in ours also, so that readers hearing this can go straight over and read what you've got to say.
Wonderful. I'll probably have that done. I'm going to start on it tonight, and usually what I do is I divide them up into twos, and I usually have them done about 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Pacific.
Great.
Okay. Well, we'll just make sure we'll make sure that we don't publish until you have that and you drop us a link, and this way we can make sure it's in there.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Yeah, I have a... Well, yeah, Stefan, you're really breaking up bad. Susan, I'm getting yours real clearly. I'm sorry about that. But I just wanted to say it was great meeting you guys. I've really long admired your work. You guys just do a great job, and it's really been a privilege to be on with you guys.
We're definitely honored because we feel the same way about your work. We watch everything you publish as you publish it.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
Well, very good. Hey, well, let's stay in touch here, and I'm sure we'll be doing some things together down the road.
Oh, we'd love that.
Absolutely.